What you just heard was a squelching sound of peat, a small noise from a landscape undergoing big changes. Today we explore a study led by Dr. Karen Anderson titled Satellite Data Indicates Recent Arctic Peatland Expansion with Warming. Across 21 transects, over 2/3 showed significant NDVI increases. This picture isn't consistent everywhere. The high Arctic is becoming wetter, while some lower altitude Arctic sites show a declining NDMI, hinting at drying. This could be a warning sign, even a Trojan horse for places like the UK. And the UK has real stakes here. Vital for our net zero commitments, peatlands cover 12% of our land area, yet 80% are degraded. The extension of the peat burning ban in England tripled protected deep peat, but protection still depends heavily on licensing rules. Meanwhile, the Climate Change Committee says we're off track. So while permafrost thaw is often framed as a major carbon release threat, this research reveals a more nuanced story. In some regions, warming has allowed peatlands to green, spread, and take up more carbon, at least for now. To explore the methods, uncertainties, and implications of this work, we spoke to Dr. Karen Anderson.
I'm Karen Anderson. I'm a remote sensing scientist.
Karen, can you explain your study and why are scientists so interested in Arctic peatlands?
We were looking at a series of peatlands that were located spatially along a sort of, I suppose, north-south transect in the Arctic, and the sites that we were looking at were located in eastern Canada, Finland, and in Svalbard being the sort of most northerly ones, and then I think the Finland ones were the most southerly. People are interested in peatlands, and particularly Arctic peatlands, is because the Arctic will experience faster than global average warming, and there's a general, I suppose, hypothesis that under those conditions, under warming conditions, Arctic peatlands might respond by increasing accumulation, so increased organic matter content as a result of warming processes, but also potentially lateral expansion, which basically means spreading out at the margins because of improved conditions for wetland formation. This project was sort of testing that hypothesis. In this project, we were using satellite data to see whether there were any signals of lateral expansion.
Why focus on the European and Canadian Arctic?
And these sites were chosen because, well, firstly, as I said, the sort of north-south idea that we could look at this transect of different climatic conditions, but also, I suppose, more operationally, we picked these because they were places that we knew we could access. And so I suppose we're sort of arguing that these are broadly representative of a range of different typologies, but yeah, except that they're not fully spatially distributed across the Arctic. Of what I think is important about this work is that it contains situated knowledge, which I think, we are, I don't want to be too controversial, but in the midst of the sort of AI revolution, it's very tempting to just think, well, we can just use satellite data to look at all peatlands across the whole Arctic and, make useful conclusions about what's happening in those sites. And I think that's a dangerous assumption, because you really do need the field observations to sort of constrain and validate what you're seeing from the satellites.
What did the fieldwork involve?
What the fieldwork actually looked like in places like Bilo Island, for example, is lots and lots and lots of dragging of canoes with field equipment in it through sort of small streams and wetland areas to get the field kit out to sites, and also quite a lot of polar bear training.
What Karen said really highlights how this project balanced accessibility with scientific ambition. They deliberately worked along a north-south transect through Finland, eastern Canada and Svalbard, not because those were the only interesting places, but because they were the ones the teams could reach safely. As she explained, Russia and Alaska were effectively off limits for research, so the sites they chose were both logistically practical and climatically diverse enough to represent wider Arctic conditions. The Arctic is warming almost 4 times faster than the global average. That warming encourages peatlands to build up organic matter and to spread laterally. Peat cores from field sites show new layers of carbon laid down since the 1980s. Karen has also stressed the value of situated knowledge. In an era of AI and machine learning optimism, it's tempting to assume satellites can map the entire Arctic with confidence. But she warned there's a dangerous assumption. The 30 by 30 metre Landsat pixels can't capture the fine-scale texture of peat edges shown in Figure 2 of the paper. Without ground truthing, dragging canoes through wetlands, flying drones with centimetre-scale resolution, and sampling peat cores, models would miss critical details. Machine learning works on probabilities, not truths. It might identify peat with 90% confidence but still be wrong. That's why Karen's team relied on field data to constrain what the satellites were telling them. Remote sensing shows greening, but only hands-on fieldwork reveals whether that means real, lasting carbon storage.
Why does Arctic peatland greening and shrubification matter for climate change?
Some peatlands are showing a greening signal, and some of that greening signal might be attributed to a change in plant functional traits. So actually, it's not just our work, but there's been loads of other work by people like, there's a group at Edinburgh led by Isla Myers-Smith that have done loads of really good work on shrubification of Arctic systems, not just peatlands, but generally. And that's significant because, well, it's complicated, of course, but I suppose predominantly the functional argument that's made about why shrubs might be expanding into not just Arctic systems, but lots of systems worldwide, is that shrubs use a photosynthetic pathway which is different from forbs and grasses. Forbs and grasses use a C4 photosynthesis pathway. I might have got that the wrong way around. I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, the one that shrubs follow has different biochemistry, photochemistry specifically within the photosynthetic pigments and cells within the leaf. And that is hypothesized to be more efficient under elevated atmospheric CO2 concentrations. So this is a potential feedback, which we haven't really investigated in this paper, but it has been done elsewhere.
Looking ahead, what are the next steps for this line of research?
Unfortunately, the money's run out, so no plans at the moment.
What was your epistemology and ontology?
At its heart, it is an empirical study, right?
Yes.
So it's about observation and measurement. So epistemologically, that is the sort of way of knowing. Ontologically, I mean, that's a sort of relational question. I suppose the best answer I can give to that is that it was intentionally very interdisciplinary.
As we wrap up, it's worth remembering that not all Arctic greening is driven by peatland expansion alone. Some of the signs we see from space may come from shifts in plant functional traits, as Karen has stated. Groups like Isla Myers-Smith's team at Edinburgh have shown widespread shrubification across the tundra. Shrubs use a C3 photosynthetic pathway, which performs efficiently under higher CO2, creating its own kind of feedback loop. In some landscapes, that means shrubs are advancing faster than peat can accumulate, demonstrating how science is connected. Karen's study is deeply empirical. Epistemologically, it's grounded in direct measurement and observation. Ontologically, it sits in a realist tradition. Peat expands, plants change, carbon moves, whether we're watching or not. Yet the ability to watch is increasingly under strain. UK environmental research funding has grown, yet ecology still lags behind other fields. As Karen pointed out, the science hasn't reached a natural conclusion. The funding did. The peatlands are still changing, expanding, drying, greening, responding to a rapidly warming Arctic. What stopped wasn't the story, but the ability to keep studying it.